Where are housing prices going? Well, this is a very popular question that I get constantly on my lives. So I want to address it. And I'm going to address it today by actually reading a piece of research by a guy named Sightbringer on X, who I've cited before, because he perfectly, it's crazy, because when I read this a couple of days ago, it's exactly the position I'm taking. So it's all organized. So I'm going to read it and then show it as it refers to this chart here. And what this chart says is that the estimated percent of more sellers than buyers in the market right now is going parabolic. And I'll talk at the end. If you stick around at the end, I'll tell you about my experience out looking in the real estate market this past weekend. And this right here, I can verify. That's what we're seeing. So let me read this to you here. It's really good. It's a little bit long. It's about 4 or 5 minutes long, but it's worth staying if you're interested in, what could happen with housing prices in the coming year. Okay. So here we go. So this is the fracture point in the U.S. housing regime. What I'm talking about right here is what he's referring to. The market has structurally broken. The buyer-seller imbalance isn't just extreme on a relative basis, it's absolute. The signal isn't that there are more sellers than buyers. The signal is that demand has collapsed to a historic low and price hasn't adjusted. The system is frozen by monetary distortion and psychological anchoring. This isn't a healthy buyer's market. It's not a rebalancing. It's a credit-driven standoff between two actors who no longer believe in the same reality. Buyers are gone because affordability has structurally broken. Sellers refuse to capitulate because their reference point is a phantom valuation backed by 3% mortgages and 2021 froth. The chart shows more than divergence. It shows pathological disequilibrium. Look at this chart. You're watching the real-time decomposition of what was the last functioning collateral class for the American middle class. That is a massive statement. The magnitude of this shift, 47.1% more sellers than buyers, is a liquidity trap in physical asset form. Homes are not clearing. Transactions are dying. Demand is not responding. Prices are sticky but structurally vulnerable. This kind of gap does not resolve gradually. It ends in one of two ways. Rates collapse and credit restarts. So that's one way. Rates collapse and credit restarts. The Fed pivots hard. Liquidity surges and a wave of synthetic demand reanimates the market. This would take a collapse in inflation or a deflation. This would take a collapse in inflation or a deflationary shock. Possible, but not organically emerging yet. So rates are not going to just collapse on their own, by the way. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. The second thing is that would have this resolved is that sellers capitulate and prices fall hard. Anchoring breaks, desperation kicks in, and we enter a grinding deflationary repricing of residential real estate, especially in overbuilt or overbought zones. So here's the deep layer. Housing is no longer a consumption good. It's a frozen financial instrument. And this chart shows the moment when the instrument lost its bid. The only reason we haven't seen the price reflect it yet prices reflect this yet is because the pain hasn't concentrated. But when it does, forced sellers, rising job losses, credit tightening, systemic policy shifts, the mood won't be linear. It will gap, and it will gap fast downward. The regime is flipped. Liquidity is dead. Mortgage probability is gone. No, mortgage portability is gone, which means, you can't just go from one house to another house and have the same rate. So you can't have that portable mortgage. Volumes have collapsed. The next phase is either artificial intervention or organic repricing. There is no middle path. The clearing mechanism has failed. This is the edge of the structural rupture. The market has decoupled from its participants. Collapse or coercion. Nothing else matters. So again, this says perfectly where I am on this, and now let me fill in a couple of things as what's going on in the world. First of all, the leading candidate right now for the Fed chair is a guy named Rick Rieder, who is BlackRock's chief investment officer. Actually, he's super bullish on Bitcoin, by the way. But one of the things he's talked about recently is that interest rates must come down, and if they come down, then you'll actually see housing stabilize and possibly even come down a little bit, but it will be a huge, huge, huge boom for the mortgage industry. And he would be in high favor of lowering rates. So that's what's possible. That's how the first scenario could come down, but it won't be organic. They'll just lower the rates. I don't know about that. We'll see what happens there. But right now, where I'd like to sort of give a little bit more information is we went on, we went to look for real estate this past weekend. And we do it just sort of look at the market, feel the energy, feel how the agents are experiencing the market. And this chart right here is incredibly accurate. One of the things that we're seeing is there's a lot of inventory on the market right now, and it hasn't even, the spring selling season isn't even close to beginning. So I think that this spring is going to be, and summer is going to be really, really, really fascinating. And depending on who gets to be the next Fed chair, we could either see a massive repricing on the downside, or something out of the blue could happen and they could do something with rates and maybe the velocity comes back to the market. Either way, I think it's pretty bifurcated right now. So let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking, what you're seeing. If anybody can add anything, we can come together on this and get sort of a collective feel of people will give me an idea of what they're thinking, what they're seeing, and what they're hearing. So thank you for attention to this matter.